Hello and welcome to this Tufts Athletics special presentation. I'm Paul Sweeney, Director of Athletic Communications for the Jumbos, and I'm pleased to be joined today by Tufts Hall of Fame baseball coach John Casey and his four sons, who are also coaching baseball, Brian, Kevin, Brendan, and Chris. Brian was just recently named the head coach at Coast Guard after many years at William and Mary. Kevin is the head coach at Johnson and Wales. Brendan is an assistant coach at Tufts, and Chris works with the Northeast Longhorns of the AAU. Coach, let's jump right in. How did baseball become such an important part of the family? Take us back to your youth.
Yeah, taking y'all back to my youth, get you back to covered wagons and crossing the plains, Sweens. But honestly, I think some of the fondest memories I have of my youth are playing in the backyard with my grandfather and playing catch. And we didn't have a lot, so I just remember the times where we'd improvise and we had an old tennis racket and he would wrap up aluminum into a ball and throw to me all afternoon. And that was it, right? It was going to bed every night with the Red Sox and the transistor radio under the pillow, listening to them. I remember, with Kyle Yastrzemski and Tony Canigliaro being young and starting their careers. I know I'm dating myself, but going to sleep every night thinking, okay, in the year, whatever, when I'm 46, I'm going to retire from the major leagues and then do something. So it was just that. The game was instilled in me from my youth, and it was just like that, what you wanted to do. I mean, if you think about it, I'm 9 years old during the Impossible Dream, right, with the Red Sox in '67, which is just one of the great moments. I had a great time growing up. Then I move on to the '70s and the Bruins and Bobby Orr, right? So it was all about hockey and baseball in Boston in those years. But it was more about just the feelings of being with my grandfather, playing catch and doing those things that just reminded me of what, I just always referred to those times, right? Those were instilled in me. It's like I look forward to it and I wanted to do it. And then, like I said, you want to get in a visual of the game, right? If you're thinking about going to sleep every night, listening on the radio and you visualize the game, right? And as it was being played. So it was pretty cool. And then it was just part of your life, right? And I loved it. Couldn't ask for more.
And Coach, how did you end up at Tufts? Tell us a little bit about your journey to Tufts.
Yeah, so again, going along those lines, we didn't really have enough. I mean, one of the funny things is I was the first person in my family to get a license and drive a car. I mean, we were true city people where if you couldn't get there by public transportation, there was no reason to get there. And so when it came time to look at schools, I was fortunate enough to go to Boston Latin School, so I had a lot of opportunities. But I think, when I looked at other schools, looked at Princeton, Dartmouth, actually University of Wisconsin, for some reason, Middlebury, and Tufts, just being local mattered to me, right? I mean, it wasn't too far. It was an adventure to get my parents to come. I remember coming to Medford and driving and getting lost because it felt like I was driving across country to go from Jamaica Plain to Medford. So it was just that thing. And I was crewed to play two sports, which is what I really wanted to do, football and baseball. And so they did a good job. I sort of liked the place, but I think it was more about they were all good schools. Although I will tell you, just like every Tufts grad at the time, I think whenever I told people I was going to Tufts, they all asked me why I wanted to become a dentist. Because there was a Tufts dental school was to the fore in those days. But it was about, I liked the coaches, right? I mean, it was a really good staff. When you think of it, Paul Pollock was the head coach. Leo Fanning was coaching, and Rich Giacchetti were in transition there, coaching baseball. So they were younger guys, they were energetic guys. I had known Coach Fanning because he had coached for a year at Latin School. So that familiarity mattered to me. So it was just a cool place, right? And I just felt like this is the place I felt most comfortable in the whole process.
Brian, you guys obviously grew up with baseball. John became the head coach. Your dad became the head coach at a young age, and he was the coach at Tufts while you guys were growing up. What are some of your earliest baseball memories with your dad?
Yeah, thanks, Weens. Similar to his growth, I remember, wiffle ball in the backyard or up at the lake and stuff like that. That sort of got us into the game a little bit when we were kids. Obviously me being the first, it was sort of a solo act at that point, so I got all the BP I could ask for at that time. I remember when he was still coaching football and baseball, so every weekend in the year was something going on at Tufts. Whether it was coming up for football tailgates, getting a chance to stand on the sideline and be around those guys up close, which was pretty cool. And then, being the bat boy in the spring and running around the outfield during BP and stuff like that. So, my earliest memories have a lot to do with, being on the sidelines or being on the dugout at Tufts, running around the gym afterwards while they're doing all the post-game stats and recruit calls. And it's me and the other coaches and their kids running around and causing havoc in the athletic department and getting into trouble, going in places where we're not supposed to be in Halligan Hall and all that stuff. So, those are my earliest memories, and, the fortunate thing for me is, obviously with, Kevin and I and even Brendan being close in age, it was sort of where we all grew up in a sense, sort of a home away from home for us. So, my earliest memories are, on the baseball field, on the football sidelines and on Tufts University's campus, for the most part.
Kevin, I'm going to ask you to take us inside the Casey home. When you guys were younger and having dinner together, was baseball the topic of conversation around the dinner table, or how did that all go?
I think that was largely dependent probably on what Mama Casey prepared for dinner that night and how good it was. Sometimes that probably took away, but no, I think we were as normal as every other family. And I think the dinner discussions reflected that. To me, it was more that Tufts baseball and the people that surrounded Tufts baseball became an extension of our family. And I think like, Wick just said, we kind of grew up around it. We grew up around the coaching staffs were surrounded by us. So I think all those times it was there. I remember at an early age when we were growing up, obviously Dad was doing football and baseball. So, Sunday dinners became a 5 o'clock dinner, and then he would head in and do the film work. So I think it was just like any other family in the discussions on that. Obviously, we have a lot of interest in sports, specifically baseball. But to me, it was more about, the family becoming extended with the baseball guys and all that stuff. I mean, the amount of guys that have made an impact on my life that played for my father, have coached with them, is absolutely tremendous. And obviously a lot of them we're very still close with. I mean, we still to this day, we joke around about, Bobby Kenny being our fifth brother, because it really becomes, I think, a unique relationship between families and the teams because of the hours that you're forced to put in as a coach. And as you raise your family, your family tends to be raised kind of around the program. So that's kind of how I saw it.
Mm-hmm. Brendan, I know that you all played other sports, so talk about that. And was there ever a point that baseball wasn't the primary sport for one of you, or that one of you thought you were going to maybe play another sport in college, or what was that like?
Yeah. I mean, growing up, if you asked us what our favorite sport was, it would depend on the season. I think all of us just loved, playing and competing. That was kind of the thing I think that attracted us all to athletics, at one point or another. Every one of us played 3 sports in high school. Chris and I were baseball, basketball, football. Brian was soccer, baseball, basketball. Kevin was baseball, wrestling, and football as well. And I mean, we all, just the sports were us growing up. I mean, every day after school or something like that, you go outside, we'd be playing football with the neighbors or playing, tennis ball, baseball out in the cul-de-sac or whatever it is. We'd set up 2 hoops in our driveway and create our own mini court to play basketball. It was just, we just wanted to, compete. So we all loved different sports. I think all at one point, I think Kevin and Chris growing up wanted to play football for Notre Dame, you know, all that type of things. You know, we all had at one point a dream to go play maybe a different sport in college. And we all ended up playing baseball. I think that was, you know, for a lot of us, our strengths, but it probably was also more of our passion, you know, going forward to do that. But yeah, there were always other sports with us growing up.
Chris, as the youngest of the group with your dad and three brothers ahead of you, what are some of the experiences that you recall? You know, were you getting guidance as a player a lot, or were you able to do your own thing? What was that like?
Well, yeah, just being the youngest, I was fortunate to learn from them all. Just first off, one memory that comes to mind is the morning of Kev's wedding. We played a family wiffle ball game, and I just don't think a lot of families get ready for a wedding by playing wiffle ball. But I mean, that just shows our love and passion for the game. And then, what was the other question you had?
I'm just curious what it was like to be the runt of the litter, so to speak, you know, growing up in such a competitive athletic family and being the youngest son. What were some just general experiences do you recall?
Yeah, just being the last one to go through Milford High, I felt like the expectations were a little bit higher just because the three of them went and had successful careers. So it was always hard to fill their shoes.
Coach, I'm going to go off script with this a little bit, but you know, how involved did you get in teaching them the game as they were all growing up? Did you let them sort of evolve on their own, or how involved were you in teaching them the game of baseball when they were young?
I sort of kept to the theory that if they love the game, they figure it out. It was more about me throwing them outside. And telling them to play catch and telling us, I mean, we had a couple of trees down in our backyard. We hung a net around it and put a tee out there, said, go swing and figure it out. And it's the same thing I believe today, you know, I mean, you know, you got to be athletic and you got to figure yourself out first. And then at that point, you know, I can work in and try to help you from where you are. And so we did that, but it was stuff like going outside and teaching them how to bounce the tennis ball off the front. You used to call it Boston, New York in the city, where you'd have a tennis ball and you'd play off your front steps and you'd have defense out there, and we'd just go out there and teach them that game, how to do that. So, I always laughed at people when they said, how come all your sons throw? And they all got great arms. And I said, yeah, it's really amazing, isn't it? We just send them out to play catch all the time and throw the ball, and we throw it over the house and they throw it to each other, and they just like being together. And I think that's how you get the love of sports, right? I don't think you get the love of sports by someone standing over you because dad's paying $50 an hour to someone to have you hit off a tee. I mean, every single day, I know Brendan used to go down, drop his knapsack and not even come in the house and walk down and hit in the backyard because he just loved it. Or I'd look out, and before they came in the house, they'd be shooting a basketball, right? So it was all about just giving them opportunities to do those things. And then we talk about stuff. We talk about field, and I mean, they were around it all the time, right? When the coaches were over the house, they'd hear everything, and they took it in. And we talk about hitting a little bit, and getting your hands up sometimes, but for the most part, when they were playing, you know, I was the parent that stood as far away as I could. Although I got a little bit more involved at the end. I wound up coaching most of them basketball on the Saturday morning leagues because I could do that. It was tough to coach baseball, but we wound up coaching. I always say my most fun was Chris's team. I mean, we were a 10-year-old team, won 12-year-old tournaments because all we did was throw and catch. And we taught the kids how to throw well and catch well, and they enjoyed it playing games doing that. And we were the best throw and catch team around. And all of a sudden, we're beating teams significantly older than us. Our guys threw strikes. We ran some pickoffs that people used to think wasn't fair. And I just laugh and go, well, it is fair. Our kids are smart enough to do it. So it was fun coaching them. We used to have a rule when I coached basketball that you couldn't shoot until we pass it 3 times, and we would pass it 3 times before we get to half court because those guys wanted to shoot so bad. So we became a pretty good passing team as we became a fast break team by accident, right? So it was just fun. And it was just like playing because they enjoyed it and they were good at it because they enjoyed it, and like I said, I always gave Kevin a hard time because, they put him in as a kicker in high school out of nowhere. And he was short right on an extra point, and I call him short right still call him short right to this day when he gets me going. But it was like they never were afraid of trying anything in the game. I thought that was the best part, and I did. I mean, when they talked about their high school experience, I did tell them they needed to play and compete for 3 seasons. I thought that was the most important thing, compete, and going to wrestling matches was torture. You're there for 3.5 hours for maybe 4 minutes of action. Basketball games were relatively fun. And those two playing together was neat. Brendan and Toph and Brian going to soccer games, got me into the world of soccer, which I quickly left. He was done, but it was cool to see them compete, and they all compete in different things, so I thought that was the most important part, was to learn to do that.
Brian and Kevin, you both played for your dad at Tufts. I'll ask you, what were the best and worst parts of playing for him at Tufts? Brian, if you could go first.
Good question, Sweens. I mean, it was a great experience. We probably ended up there. At least I know I did, probably because of limited options. So I appreciate that I had the opportunity even to play there. I think the cool part about it is I think we sort of got both sides of it. We got the coaching side, which I think at this point is sort of speaks for itself. Having the opportunity to go there and be developed as a player, learn the game, learn the entire game, and have some pretty successful teams. I know, my first year, myself and 5 other first-year guys got a chance to play right away, which was fantastic. And then by the time Kevin got there in a couple of years, we were good, and we had a couple really good seasons, my junior and senior year. So not only did a chance to play, but to play on some really good teams, which is, makes it all the more enjoyable. But, I thought, looking back, I think the great part was, like, once we got, off the field or away, or we come home, he was dad at home, so we were able to get both sides. And I'm sure that was probably harder for him than it was for us. I remember sort of after graduation and leaving, like, the hardest part was, he sort of tried to leave it up to his assistant coaches to sort of make the call on when we were ready. I remember Coach Clark sort of had the deciding vote on, when I was ready to play early on, so he could sort of be as objective as possible. So put it in the hands of somebody else to sort of help with that. So, but didn't really feel like there was any sort of nepotism. If anything, I'm sure if you ask me, try to be a little bit harder on us at times to make sure that our teammates knew that everybody was on a level playing field. And we sort of had to earn our way just like everybody else, and I thought that was, must have been tough. I know there was a little bit of a learning curve for us, but it was a great experience. We won a bunch of games, and had a chance to, get better as players too. So I know, in this seat now, 16, 17 years later, it was a valuable playing experience, playing for him. So.
Kevin, can you add to that?
I mean, I think Brian kind of nailed it on the head a little bit. I mean, I look back at it obviously as one of the best experiences of my life, those 4 years on the baseball field, those guys, the relationships we built, and obviously, selfishly playing with my brother and obviously my father. I think that's an experience that you don't get all the time, and it's something that you might not embrace or truly appreciate during your 4 years while you're there. But obviously, as you get a little bit further from your playing days and you have the ability to look back on stuff like that, and I even go back to even my couple years that I got to share the dugout as a coach with them. I think there's a lot of valuable lessons. I think sometimes, you look at him so much as dad that you don't realize all the accomplishments and how other people may view him in the baseball world and what he's done, and how lucky you are to be able to kind of just get those daily lessons and that teaching on a daily basis. But, the playing days were cool. I look back at it. I still think, coming out of high school, looking at other places, did I want to go there? Did I not? I truly loved the place growing up. But then, that opportunity came, and I knew, playing with my brother, Brian, it was kind of a cool thing while we were in high school together. I felt pretty comfortable because during high school, I had put up better numbers than him probably over the grand scheme of things. So I wasn't scared that, I wasn't going to be able to compete for him or try to steal his job or anything like that. So it was exciting on that end. And then obviously, my biggest thing was, trying to get to college and be able to contribute and play right away. And I think a lot of that goes to getting comfortable. And with Brian going there 2 years before and getting to meet some of the guys on the team through him, being comfortable was a lot easier to do right away because it was a kind of a program that I grew up around. I knew the coaching staff. I knew how they kind of operated, but I also knew some of the guys, and I knew they were great guys. So it was easy for me to just kind of be myself and continue to do what I've always done. So it wasn't much of an adjustment period on that end. But I definitely look back at that 4 years with the tremendous amount of impact it's had, and obviously how fortunate we are. And sometimes you don't really get to appreciate it as coach and dad. But he's no doubt was dad off the field, and when he was on the field or we were dealing with baseball, he was coach. And I'll remember my last game was out at Williams. We ended up losing the NESCAC championship, and he came to the back of the bus like he would do all the time to kind of talk to the seniors. And I just remember, I think I looked at him and I said, just thank you, coach. And that's where it kind of hit, where it was not necessarily coach anymore. We were moving back to that, father-son relationship, but that had always been there. And that had a tremendous impact. Like I said, it's been a blessing, and it's a lot of the reasons why I'm in the position I am in today.
Coach, can you reflect back on those couple of years that you had both Brian and Kevin on your team? What do you remember most from those years?
I hope these two guys get the opportunity to do what I got to do. But it was the hardest part was honestly being hard on them, right? And the reason why I was hard on them was to make it easy on them in the locker room and off the field. That was always my goal, right? I mean, we could make the assessment on talent and all that, but as soon as there was a inkling of favoritism, I mean, they were going to suffer, right? And I think that's always the dilemma of a coach's son playing for him. So that was the hardest part when they played for me was literally hiding the pride I had, right? Want to jump out of my shoes certain times when they made plays, and also sitting there sick to my stomach watching them strike out to end the game. But to me, it was like you just buried it, and you just had to be coach. I always came back to, we were playing here actually, and I have no idea what it was. I just remember Coach Clark getting sort of excited because Coach Clark keeps track of everything, right? He knows everything. And I remember the play vividly. We were playing Colby, and there was a ball hit, and it was a close game. It was a ball hit to Kevin's left. He was at third base, and he dives for the ball, and there was 2 outs in the last inning. And he dives for the ball and off his knees throws it, and Brian's playing second. He has to stretch at second, and that's the third out of the game. And Clarky just grabs my shoulders and says, "That's awesome. That's great. Congratulations. What a way to do it." And I go, "What are you talking about?" And he says, I don't know what it was, 300th, 400th, I something. But the moment sticks with me, not for the number of wins, but because they did it. That's what made it special to me. And so I always, when I think back of the two of them playing, that's the first moment that comes into my mind, and Brian's right. When Clarky was in charge of letting me know when he should play, and Clarky came up and said to me, it's time now. He's ready to play, and he should, based on the guys putting the lineup. And I said, great, thanks. He's not playing today. And then he played the next day. But again, just we're always going to err on the side of caution, but that was their benefit. But it was awesome coaching for him for the sole reason that I knew I had two guys who would compete like crazy out there, right? And that's what we've always been about, is just competing and not giving in. And so that was great, and it was good that they played well, right? Because it made my life easier that they played well. Really did. It was not, as I've told every team I've ever coached. I mean, whenever you guys want to publicly pick the starting nine, go ahead, come up here in the middle of the locker room and do it. You're not going to pick any different than I am. You might think you're gutsy and switch a guy hitting seventh and eighth, but you're not going to change it. And that's how it is. So it was awesome. It really was. But the hardest part was just keeping down all the times I was proud of them.
Brendan, you went to Azusa Pacific and played for Paul Svagdis, who played for your dad at Tufts. Chris, you went to Western New England. Can you guys talk about how much you kept in touch with your dad during those times, and what did he help you with? Chris, if you could start.
Yeah, I mean, during baseball season, it seemed like every day we'd talk. When I was at Western New England, I'd always try to get Tufts on the schedule, and looking back, it probably wasn't a good idea since my career batting average was already low enough. And then senior year, I didn't play a lot, so I'd always call him pretty pissed off, and he always just gave me encouraging words and just told me to stick with it. And at the end of the day, you'll be a better person because of it. And I, looking back at it now, I completely understand that. So that was always helpful.
And Brendan, you were across the country. Tell us what that was like and how your dad helped you through your college career.
Yeah, it started off rough for sure. I was probably calling him a lot more early on. I was calling him. I think he had me set up a phone call with Brian at one point, because it was hard, being that far away. It was a different environment too that I was used to being in. And I remember I wanted to be out in the first couple months. I wanted to be out. I wanted to be back, back east around my high school friends, everything like that. He was like, talk to your brother, freaking go through transferring through him, all that type of stuff. We talked, everything like that. And then both of them, the one thing they said was just get to the spring. It's a different world once you get to the spring. And I remember we got into the season, and it was just like they were right. Obviously, it was a whole new world. We were playing, we were competing again. It was, it felt like there was more to it. And I was constantly calling him. It was, I would say it was the first time in baseball that I struggled. I lucked out in my first game. I ended up getting a start as a true freshman in game 1 of the year because of an injury. I went 0 for 3 with 3 strikeouts, and I think I made 5 throwing errors or something like that over at third base. And I mean, it was funny. And I had them to bounce off of. And then the fun part was having, Coach Svagdis. He was an ideal guy to play for me because, I'm going nuts. I'm MFing myself and all this. And all he does, he starts cracking a joke at me. He goes, I got a 6'5", 275-pound first baseman. You can't hit that target. He goes, I don't think they don't make first baseman bigger than this guy, So I was cracking, after that point, it made me laugh, lighten me up. I was able to figure it out again. I was able to throw the ball across the diamond. It was great. But I had all these guys as sounding boards when I was out there, going through it. It was awesome. My mom would come out once a year to watch me play. It was, obviously it was tough for all of them to come out because they were playing or coaching at that time. My junior year, we made the regional. We were pretty good. We were hosting the regional, and I'm at third base in the second inning of the game, and I turn around and my dad was there, and it was pretty cool. I didn't expect it. His season ended a little early that year, and he came out and surprised me to watch it. It was like an extra boost of energy. It was cool to have, and all these guys were great when I was out there calling them for all different things. I remember my senior year we stunk. and I was a captain. I called Kevin, I think like every other day, and I'm like, how the hell do you deal with such a crap team? You know, what do you do to get these kids to play hard? And I mean, he you know, he would give me advice. I think I had a players only meeting because of him, you know, trying to get to figure out what, you know, what these guys wanted. So I had so many resources when I was out there from these guys back home, you know, that it made it easier to be out there. And then of course having Paulie, an East Coast guy, a guy, you know, with Tufts roots, it was someone I could always rely on out there, you know. So it was cool. It was a different experience, you know, going out there. And yeah, it was tough at first, but now looking back on it, you know, I wouldn't have it any other way.
Cool. So correct me if I'm wrong, but you all went right into coaching after graduating college. Brian, you both played and coached for your dad, as did Kevin. But which did you like better? Sort of compare and contrast those experiences.
Yeah, the cool thing, Sweens, is I actually didn't get into coaching right away. It was nothing that he ever forced on us. You know, if anything, he was probably supporting and pushing me to say like, hey, if you want to try something else, go do it. So I, like any senior spring athlete, like I didn't think one thing of what was happening beyond May graduation because we were playing. So when that sort of kind of came and went, I was like, all right, what do I do now? I actually got hooked up through a Tufts colleague, an alum to do some sports marketing stuff. And after doing that for about 2 months, I was kind of like, all right, you know, what's next? And the opportunity to come back in GA at Tufts was on the table. So that's sort of how I got in. So it wasn't like, you know, he let us sort of find the profession in a sense. It wasn't anything that was, you know, that coach, you need to be a coach type deal. So, and I think that's probably why we're all still in it in some capacity at this point. You know, but having played in coach room, I guess the easy answer is playing was easier because at least you got a half inning in the field, you know, away from him, you know, so he wasn't right on top of you. So he got that little half inning off. But no, I mean, I think they're both, you know, unique experiences. You know, as a player, you know, he let us play. He let us earn our time. He let us be one of the guys. You know, we were fortunate to be successful while we were there. You know, the one thing I'll say that's different with coaching with them is you just get an appreciation for the other side. You know, as a player, you only, you know, kind of see what happens during the, you know, during the practice, during the game. The amount of time that you need to put in to be good is a lot. And it's not something you can sort of cut corners with. And when you get on staff, you know, I know my first year, that was the biggest learning curve. You know, I thought it was just kind of, we show up, we'll do the same stuff that we did the year before when I was a player, and, you know, we should get the same results. And it wasn't anything like that. The amount of hours that, you know, the coaching staff puts in, the recruiting stuff, the administrative stuff, all this stuff that just allows us to practice when we want to practice or play when we want to play. There's a lot that goes into it, and getting that side of it and sort of having the opportunity to learn how to do the job well, which doesn't always correlate to just wins and losses, but more about sort of the process of doing things the right way and learning what that was. And you just kind of got a glimpse of the other side. You know, I know, you know, Kevin getting a chance to be an assistant coach there, Brendan getting that experience now, like, you know, it serves you well when you get a chance to go somewhere else and get some other influences. But a lot, you'll find that a lot of those core values or core beliefs or things that it takes to be good, you know, started there. You know, I know, you know, being a head coach here for about 2.5 weeks and trying to install some of that stuff, you know, it's, you know, you go back to some of the things that we learned as players and as our first couple of years coaching at Tufts. So they both had rewarding experiences, you know, and unique in their own ways.
Kevin, in what ways are you similar to your dad as a coach, and in what ways are you different?
You know, I think the way I look at it, it's tough to say, you know, a person that's going into year 2.5 of head coaching is similar to a guy that is, you know, 40 plus years in and in the Hall of Fame of coaching. But obviously, I think, you know, what we try to be similar with him is, you know, how he treats his players in the relationships that he's built and the stuff that he does on that side of things, on that end of coaching. So, as we're trying to build our program here, I try to bounce back ideas and stuff we do there. But I also think the other side is, the biggest thing for me, and ultimately probably what makes us the most similar in the dugout is, you got to be yourself. And I think the players, are going to know if you're trying to be someone different. I was talking to my assistants the other day about the NFL and how a lot of guys have struggled leaving Bill Belichick's tree. And a lot of them have struggled because they've tried to take what Bill Belichick does and do that rather than necessarily just be themselves. And I think one of the guys that has had a lot of success or is showing some signs of success is obviously Brian Flores down in Miami, who kind of has his unique little approach on how he tries to do things. So, I try to see that in my coaching style. I think if you looked at our program, you looked, as a spectator looking in, you'd see a lot of similarities, but I think you'd see our own style to it. And ultimately, I think that, like I said, is what makes us the most similar, is that we are ourselves. We are competitive. I tend to probably fire from the hip a lot more than some of the other guys in this room. But that's just who I am, and that's the passion I have. And I don't ever want that to go away, because ultimately, like I said, it goes back to, I'm trying to build a dugout of, as cliche as it is, family and brothers. And I don't think you would act different around a brother. You would be yourself. So that's probably where we're the most similar, is that, we do have that Irish passion, that Irish temper every once in a while. I'm sure that there's probably a couple umpires that I don't have the leeway that he has, because he took all of our leeway away from us with what he's done over the years. But I think there is those different styles, and there obviously are there's a lot of those similarities as well.
Brendan, I know that Brian actually reflected on this a little bit earlier, but was there ever a possibility of any of you not going into a career in baseball? How close did you or anybody else come to being an accountant, let's say, or something like that?
Me? Never a chance
Yes,
of being an accountant. I mean, for all of us, I think we all, for the most part, we love the game. And if you ask any of us, it'd be really difficult to leave at any point. Some of us, we kept playing the game even after we were done, in college. Like, we played in the intercity league at night. I mean, there was even one year where me, Brian, and Kevin were all on the same team together. Brian and I played a lot. Kev helped out, warmed up the left fielder. I'm just that's a joke. Kev played as well too. And even if a couple years ago, Chris and I played together in the hockey league. So it was just, all of us, we love the game. We love being around it in some capacity. For me, it was, I always wanted, if I couldn't play, I wanted to get into coaching, because by the time I got to it, I had my dad who'd been coaching forever. And then I had two older brothers that had been coaching. And I saw how much fun they were having. And I just thought, that's what I wanted to do, or what I wanted to be a part of. Chris is actually kind of the unique one. He's coaching on the side, he's got his full-time career, working outside of baseball. But even if you see him, he's putting in full-time work with the Longhorns, even though it's not his full-time job. I mean, he's constantly there throughout the week running practices with his kids. He's got those weekends filled up in the spring and the summer, taking those teams to tournaments. And, you could see it, like the same passion that we have, with the college teams that we're doing, he has it for the same thing. I think he's got the best 12U team in the state. Or at least that's what he tells us after every tournament weekend, when he keeps us updated with, sends us the text of, Jimmy hit 4 home runs today. Keep him on your radar for 2028. it's just, baseball is just, it's always been a, passion for us. So, I think if you asked all of us, I think there was always that deep down, we always knew it was something we were going to get into, and it would have to be, some part of our life. It played such a big part of our life growing up, and with, the competitive athletics that, it's just what we wanted to do.
Chris, what are you doing full time?
I work for Allied Sports, which is a sport marketing agency, and I work on the brand consulting team there.
Cool. And in your life as a coach, how much do you talk strategy with the old man? And when you do you always agree with him?
I'd say we talk here and there, not too much about strategy. I feel like he wants us to be our own version of a coach. But I do remember back in grade school, I would always fill out the Tufts batting orders and see if he'd actually use them. So we always didn't see eye to eye there. And that might be because I tried slipping Kev to the 3-hole after hitting his first career home run that he says put a hole in the math building. So
That's how I passed math, Swedes.
Coach, what do you see in each of the boys as coaches?
I mean, pretty much what they've said, right? I mean, I think what's really cool about it is they are being themselves as coaches, right? Which you have to be. You have to be genuine, or people can see right through it. But I think from my standpoint, when I look at them, and I say I love when they talk baseball. The conversations we have now when they want to talk baseball are awesome, because it's I don't feel it's ever father to son. I feel like it's coach to coach, and I love that part of the relationship, right? That we can do that. So I think when they're all different, but they're all true to their personalities, having been with them their whole lives. Kev's right. Kev's a little bit more fiery. Brian's a little bit more reserved. The way they've always been, that's who they've been. Brendan goes back and forth, which I like, but he only gets fiery with me. He doesn't necessarily get fiery with his players, which he needs to a little bit. And Chris is ultra organized, which is who he is, with his kids, and very detailed about those things. So they all bring their strengths into it. But like I said, I think the coolest part of it from my end, honestly, is when we talk as coaches and we do things, I'm learning from them. And I think that's great. We share stuff. We go through some stuff. I mean, they've been around, right? They've been around the coaching tree enough. They've talked with Pins, they've talked with Mike Ward, they've talked with, Paul and all those guys, and they've seen that stuff. But it's pretty cool when they go somewhere else and they come back and they say, they need to do it this way. And we talk about how you talk to other coaches and get your ideas across. And they've done a really good job at that. So, but that happens with all the other coaches. I think that part of the relationship is really cool. And then there's other days where we'll just sit watching the Patriots game or the Red Sox and argue with each other, just like father son, about who knows what about this. So, it's happening on different levels. But I mean, I would, if I was an AD, I'd hire them all just as coaches. I mean, being in this thing for 40 years, they more than hold their own on their knowledge of the game, and how they go about doing what they're doing. And, so that makes me the proudest, right? Is that they get it and they're developing it and they're going after it. Probably the one thing I get on them is get to clinics, get to the ABCA, do all those things, learn the game, keep learning till you out, because as soon as you stop learning about the game, you're done. With stuff like that. And the other part, which I think is really awesome, is make sure you build community service into your programs. Because you're really fortunate dudes, and you need to make sure you take care of other people. So, but yeah, I mean, they're good coaches. There's no question. I mean, you can ask other people; they'll tell you. I mean, they try to figure out where they learned it from, not me. But
we all know the real MVP of the family is Diane, wife of Coach Casey and mom to the boys. What's been her role in this?
I'll throw
I'll jump
this
in on
one
that
out.
one, Sweens.
Go ahead, Coach.
I'll
Go
throw
ahead.
this one out because this sums up Diane in a T. When William and Mary was playing Northeastern, which Kevin and Bri were coaching with, and the game was at Northeastern. She would walk into the field with 4 bags, 3 blankets, and her book and her chair, and walk into the middle and make sure she sat directly in the middle. So she wouldn't sit 1 inch to the Northeastern side or 1 inch to the William Mary side to watch the game, which was awesome because when you look up, she'd be reading her book, but she just was there for her sons. But it was just like that's who she is, right? She just worries about all those things. She's literally the foundation of our family, right? She's the one who keeps us all grounded and keeps us all understanding, what's the most important things. But these guys will have better stories than that.
I mean,
Yeah, Sweens, that was a story that I was going to tell too. I think that's the cool part. I think the one thing for her is, we get competitive. We're all coaching. It's all the same. She sort of is the escape for us in a lot of ways, just to be mom, just to call up and say, hey, how you're doing? Like, a lot of times we'll call up and it's like, hey, how'd the game go? That she'll let us kind of have a little bit of an escape and support system throughout, whether it's a 0 for 4 day or a loss or a win. She's always, first to text you good luck before the game starts and, how'd it go and are you okay and all that kind of stuff when she sees the box score. So she's a tremendous support system for all of us.
I'll just add on to that. I mean, I think it's, the story I think about the most is we were out in the Nescacs, and I believe it was Mother's Day, and we obviously, me and Dad kind of dropped the ball on that one, and we didn't have the flexibility to run out and go pick up the flowers at Shaw's or do a quick turnaround. So I ended up meeting her before the game with a couple bottles of hotel shampoo and soap, and I said, happy Mother's Day. We're going to go that route. But then, I remember it the most because I think I ended up having probably one of the best days in my career on the offensive side of things. And I still think to this day, she thinks I gifted her 5 hits on Mother's Day. And it was just kind of lucky and all that stuff. But, ultimately, like my father said, she has been truly the rock and the foundation of the family. It's funny to see, her grow up with, being 5'2", the smallest one, and stepping in the middle of 2 angry Irish Caseys, going at it and competing and all that stuff. And she's probably always handled it herself and has done an unbelievable job. I no doubt probably am more scared of my mother than I am my father because of that stuff. But she's been awesome. And still to this day, she still supports us. And that's what's the greatest thing. I know it when she was at Northeastern, like my father was saying, she used to set up the chair in the stands. Like in the stands, she'd bring her own chair, blankets, this and that. And I remember the first time she came, we were up in the locker room changing, and I tried to get my field guys and facility guys. I tried to throw them under the bus, and I started poking and prodding them with, "Hey, who's that crazy lady reading the book, bringing her own chair to the stands and her own seats to the stands?" And they knew right away. She had already introduced herself as Mrs. Casey and was just here to watch her son coach, which was funny. And that day that she counted the seats, I remember going over to her and I told her, "Hey, I've been alive for, I think at the time, probably 27, 28 years. It's clear as day that Brian was her favorite. So I had no problem with her drifting over to the William and Mary side, and that we were going to get our revenge that day, and the Huskies were going to be able to try to win that one." So she, like I said, it's been cool, and she's been a huge support. I've seen her be a mother to some of the players that have been at Tufts, and be that support system. I know she's a humongous fan, and when my old man used to come home and kind of vent and stuff, she'd always be on the player side and trying to bring him back down to reality and remember what it's all about. So I think that he nailed it on the head when he said that she's kind of the foundation of all of it.
In conclusion, guys, it was about a year ago, I believe. You guys were in Nashville for a coach to be inducted into the American Baseball Coaches Association Hall of Fame. And I'm just sort of interested in what you remember most from that weekend. We'll start with the boys, Brian.
Yeah, Sweens, it was awesome. I don't think any of us need any sort of justification for what we saw firsthand for my father and his career. I think the numbers speak for themselves, but obviously I think it goes a lot deeper than that. But to see the recognition, for other people, I think was huge. And I think that was important. And to see the amount of people that felt it was worth their time and energy and resources to get to Nashville for that moment, to be there, to see him go into the Hall of Fame was incredible. It was there was some humbling to it as well, for us to see, sort of a culmination of a lot of things sort of come where, hey, these people thought that he made enough of an impact on their lives to be there at a moment where he was being recognized for it. So I mean, it was tremendous to be there, hear some of the stories and just see him recognized, publicly and nationally for the impact that he's had on so many people, not just baseball wise, but as people, as they moved on from Tufts and on to other things and all that kind of stuff. I thought it was an incredible weekend, and obviously couldn't have picked a better spot than Nashville to celebrate that for everything else that we were able to do. So it was a tremendous weekend, and I know I speak for the rest of my brothers where we're very proud of them.
Yeah, I mean, I'll just kind of build off that. I think that's the piece that I think about the most. Obviously, getting to see all the guys again. A lot of them I hadn't seen since I was little. I remember I actually got on my flight with my wife Bailey, and right in front of us was this gigantic gentleman sitting next to a guy that looked like a little gentleman. And then when I took a look at it, it was actually our trainer Nikki Metropolis sitting next to probably one of my all-time favorite Tufts players, Eric Schultz. And it was kind of two complete opposites. But I always call Eric Schultz my bodyguard because when I was going through some tough times in high school and stuff like that, he was always the guy that called me up to straighten me up a little bit so the old man could focus on the season and stuff like that. But I think my dad always talks about how proud he is of us, our accomplishments, and what we have done as individuals. And I think that's the side of the street growing up that we've always kind of seen. I think the moment that really struck in Nashville was watching him get called up and giving him a speech, and the sense of pride that was felt around our table, and looking up there and saying, hey man, that's something that's going to be done forever, right? There's no changing that out. And I think that was probably the coolest part of it, is knowing how much time and effort and work he's put in, the amount of sacrifices it takes, being away from your family. Now I know what that's like, right? Going to practice and it's like you got 35-year-old other kids, and your own kid doesn't get the attention necessarily all the time that you want to get him while he's at home. And then you see what it comes out to. And he'll tell you, I don't think that's what it's about at all. I don't think he necessarily, he feels accomplished. He feels a lot of pride. He loves the fact that but that's not why he did it. And I think that's what that night was all about, was all the guys that were in that room to celebrate with him. And I think he'll tell you to the day he dies, that ultimately is what meant the most about that weekend, was the amount of guys that reached out, the amount of guys that took time out of their busy schedules to come over the holiday season, to come down there and celebrate him, and how much pride we all had to see a guy that has put in the time that he is and not really sought out the recognition, get the recognition that he probably deserved a little bit earlier and stuff like that. So that's the side that I think ultimately I take away the most from that weekend.
Yeah. All right, I'll go. Yeah, unfortunately, I was pretty sick down in Nashville. So I didn't miss the meeting though. I definitely didn't miss that. I actually, going back to Kevin or Brendan's story about my mom at Kev's wrestling meets, I told my mom, I was like, "Can you just shoot me a text when Dad's about to speak?" So of course she texts me right when the event starts. So I head down there and I'm sitting there and there's a bunch of food being put in front of my face and it's making me nauseous and this and that. But as I was sitting there, my dad's sitting up there on the stage and I get a text from him and he's just asking if I'm okay to be there, if I feel fine. And I mean, to me, he's about to get introduced into the Hall of Fame and he's texting his son asking if he's all right. And that's just the type of person he is. He always puts people ahead of him. So but yeah, it was definitely something I couldn't miss. I wish it was different, which I wasn't sick so I could enjoy the full part of it. But I mean, just being there for the speech and being able to be there was awesome.
It was a really cool night. And it was something different that we usually don't get to see. Cause I mean, Sweens, you know his personality. He doesn't want to be, the center of attention. He doesn't, he wants to put others, it's just what we grew up. You put others before yourself. And in that night, we got to see all those guys that, he always put in front of himself show up for him. It was amazing how many people showed up, that night in support. It says a lot about him, but it says a lot about, the Tufts baseball family that had been created over the last, 40 years. I mean, you saw guys from every class, from different stretches, guys that are in different parts of their life, all make time to be down there for those couple days to support him going through. And, it was just cool. It was cool to see everybody get around, and the truth is you had guys from all different eras and their one connection was, Coach Case, and all of them were hanging out in that room post as if it was, the Tufts locker room. Like they were all in there together at the same time. That's what was special. All sharing their stories, their favorite memories. You wouldn't believe Coach Case did this. No, let me show you. I got something that can top that. And it was just, it was a sweet night. And you had, it was a night for family and everything like that, it was cool. And it was special. That's as simple as I could put it.
Coach, what was your takeaway from that weekend?
Honestly, it was just trying to get through the speech, but it was, I actually spent, the worst part is you have a year to figure it out. Right. And so, but that was it. And then it was just, as these guys said, as they found out another guy was there and another guy was there and another guy was there. And, after that whole thing's over and we went out and had a good time, we were sitting in the lobby with Coach Wilbur, who was one of my first assistants and pins and a couple of other, and Coach Fagdis, and we were up till 5:30 in the morning just talking baseball and just smiling and reliving old stories. And that's what it is, right? It's always, it's not that you spend your whole life looking back, but looking back and it brings a smile to your face. And, that's what memories should be, right? And I think that was the best part is those guys, again, the biggest honor is not being in the Hall of Fame. In my mind, the biggest honor was those guys taking the time to be there. Right. That's how I was honored, if you ask me.
Well, thanks a lot, guys. This has been fun. Thanks for taking time out of your busy schedules to join us. And this is Paul Sweeney, and this has been a special presentation of GoTuftsJumbos.com. We've had a fun hour with Tufts Hall of Fame baseball coach John Casey and his sons. Thanks for watching.